It started with a missed call. Not from her, but from a number I didn't recognize, around 2:14 a.m. on a Tuesday. Now, normally, I wouldn't even be awake. But that night I was. Maybe because the universe was doing me a weird little favor. I stared at the number, squinting into the glow of my phone screen, debating whether to call back. I didn't. I did what any self-respecting man would do. I Googled it. It was a hotel. Downtown. 5 stars, skyline view, valet parking. The kind of place you visit when you're not just cheating, but cheating with style. And just like that, something cracked inside me. Not a snap. Not a shatter. Just a quiet, clean fracture. Like a hairline break in a bone you don't feel until the weather changes. Her name's Claire. My wife of 8 years. Partner in mortgage, co-curator of Spotify playlists, queen of the coffee cabinet, and apparently, connoisseur of late-night hotel rendezvous. She came home the next morning wearing the same perfume she always wore, Jasmine Winds, a scent so innocent it should be illegal. She walked in like nothing had happened, kissed me on the cheek, dropped her bag by the door, and asked, "Do you want pancakes?" Pancakes. I said sure. Because of course I did. Because if the Titanic had a breakfast buffet, I'd probably still have ordered waffles while the ship tilted. Over pancakes, blueberry, her favorite, not mine. I looked at her the way you'd study a magic trick after you've figured it out. You still applaud, still nod, but your eyes are elsewhere. Mine were on the curve of her smile, the way her eyes darted when I said, "You sleep okay last night?" She didn't flinch. Yeah. Stayed with Rachel. Girls' wine night turned into a sleepover. Oh. I said, chewing. Yeah. She shrugged like it meant nothing. Didn't want to drive. Of course not, I said. Safety first. And I meant that. Genuinely. Because I was already planning how to keep her safe from me. The thing is, I didn't confront her. Not then. That would have been satisfying. Logical, even. But I wasn't after logic. No, I did something far worse. I forgave her. I smiled, cleaned the plates, and even kissed her on the forehead. Because sometimes the best revenge isn't loud. It's patient. It's quiet. It waits. And while it waits, it gathers evidence, collects the lies like puzzle pieces, and fits them together one by one until the picture is undeniable. You see, I didn't want to just catch her. I wanted her to trust me first. So when she lied again, and she would, I'd be ready. That night, I texted Rachel. Thanks for keeping Claire safe last night, smiley face. She said she stayed at yours. Rachel's reply came 5 minutes later. I haven't seen Claire in over a month. Everything okay? And there it was. The first domino. I smiled and turned off the light. Sleep came easily that night. Revenge always wears the sin of clarity. The thing they never tell you about betrayal is how ordinary it feels in the moment. Not dramatic. Not cinematic. It's not thunder and glass breaking. It's her folding laundry while humming off-key to Taylor Swift, tossing you a glance like she still remembers how to be married. Claire was an artist of normal. She curated it. Wore it like a second skin. That morning, she brewed my coffee, exact ratio of sugar and cream, slid it across the counter like a bartender of routine love. You've been quiet lately, she said, sipping hers. Work's been heavy. Not a lie. Just not the truth she needed. She nodded. You know you can talk to me. Oh, sweetheart. I am talking. You're just not listening. The next week, I played the part. Dinners. Little gifts. A random back rub. I even suggested we take a weekend trip, just us, like the old days. She smiled like she hadn't packed a weekend bag for someone else 3 days prior. I knew by then. Knew who he was. He worked at her gym. The one she never used to go to until a few months ago when spin class suddenly became holy scripture. He had a name like a cologne daemon. I'd seen his Instagram. Too many tattoos to be a threat, I used to think. Turns out, tattoos just mean he's more committed to his bad decisions than I ever was. Claire's phone was passcode protected. But the cloud? The cloud has no loyalty. She hadn't updated her backup settings in months, and she never realized I still had access through our shared tablet. You'd be surprised what syncs when no one's paying attention. Photos. Messages. Calendar entries. Thursday, 8 p.m. Hotel Elysian. Room 915. Bring that smile. That night, I watched her dress carefully. She curled her hair. Wore heels she used to complain hurt her feet. You going out? I asked, leaning in the doorway. Yeah, Rachel and Monica. Girls' night again. She didn't even flinch. Sounds fun. She kissed me lightly and grabbed her purse. I'll wait up, I said. No need, she smiled. Don't wait up. Of course not. She didn't know I followed her. Just for a little while. Just long enough to watch her hand graze his back in the parking lot like it had done that 100 times before. I didn't take pictures. I didn't need to. The point wasn't proof. The point was patience. I wasn't going to scream at her in a hotel lobby. I wasn't going to show up like some rejected soap opera husband flinging evidence and heartbreak. No. I was building something far more elegant than confrontation. I was building trust. Her trust. 3 days later, I surprised her with flowers. Just because, I said. She cried. Said I was the only man who ever truly understood her. I smiled. I wasn't looking for understanding anymore. I was looking for the perfect moment. And trust me, when it came, it was going to be unforgettable. You ever watch someone lie so well, they convince themselves it's love? Claire was doing that daily. She still laughed at my jokes, maybe not the same way, not with that crinkle near her eyes I used to live for, but enough to keep the illusion alive. She still texted me little things like, "Don't forget milk," and "Love you," with 3 U's like we were still in high school and not in the final act of something she'd already set on fire. But I didn't flinch. I played the role of the man she could keep deceiving. Because that's how you win. I started a notebook. A physical one. Leather-bound, hidden beneath the insulation panels in the garage, behind the bins labeled Christmas lights and old tax stuff. No one touches the Christmas lights in July. Inside that notebook? A war journal. Dates. Times. Hotel names. Outfits. Phrases she used with him that I remembered because they used to be mine. Can't wait to get tangled up with you. Claire had texted him that the same week she kissed me goodnight like a habit she was trying to break. I wasn't documenting for closure. I was documenting to build her ending. People always say revenge is messy, that it ruins the person seeking it. Not if you do it right. I also started recording. No, not in a creepy spy camera kind of way. Just naturally. I'd leave my phone in the kitchen when I went for a jog and let the mic run. I'd text her from the driveway like, "Forgot my keys," just to give her time to answer a call if she thought I was gone. You'd be amazed what people say when they think they're in the clear. "Damon, I can't talk long. He just left." My stomach tightened, sure. But I smiled. She didn't even call me by name anymore. Just he. In her world, I was already fading. She just didn't know how clearly I saw her now. One day she came home early. I was sitting on the back porch pretending to read a book. I could feel her eyes on me as she stepped outside. "You okay?" she asked. Why wouldn't I be? I didn't look up. She shrugged. "You've just been better lately. Nicer." I bookmarked a page that didn't matter. "Maybe I'm healing." She raised an eyebrow. "From what?" I smiled. "That's the thing about healing, Claire. Sometimes you don't notice the wound until after it's already infected." She stared a little too long. "Anyway," I added, standing up, "I'm making lasagna tonight. That thing you like." Her eyes softened. She almost looked hopeful, which was perfect. Hope is the most delicious thing to destroy. Later that night, she fell asleep early. I watched her chest rise and fall beside me, steady, like nothing in her world was broken. I reached into the drawer, pulled out my notebook, and made another entry. Friday, Claire and Damon. Confirmed. Her car was at the Riverfront Marriott. Room 512. She wore the blue dress with the slit. The one I bought her for our anniversary. The one she said was too fancy for a date night. I underlined fancy. And I didn't feel a thing. There's a strange kind of peace in pretending. Pretending you don't know. Pretending you're not playing 4D chess while she's stuck thinking you're still learning the rules. Every morning became theater. And I was Daniel Day-Lewis in The Unfaithful Wife who thinks she's clever. Claire started walking differently. Not dramatically. Just lighter. Like she was hiding a secret that made her feel powerful. I imagine she thought I was too distracted to notice. That's the mistake people make when they think you're kind. They assume you're also stupid. She sat across from me one evening, scrolling on her phone, sipping her wine, humming some song I didn't recognize. Something she'd picked up from him, probably. Damon seemed like the kind of man who listened to those sad boy acoustic bands that act like whispering makes them poetic. "Dinner was good," she said, eyes still on her screen. "Thanks," I replied. "It was a recipe my mom used to make." She nodded. The thing is, it wasn't. I made it up. Threw a bunch of stuff in a pan, sprinkled some oregano on top, and added a story for flavor. And she believed it. Ate it. Complimented it. That was the moment I knew. She didn't see me anymore. Just the outline of a man she could drift through. A few nights later, I stood in front of the bathroom mirror, toothbrush hanging loosely from my mouth, when I heard her voice. Muffled. Low. The bedroom door was slightly cracked. I stepped out just enough to hear. "No, I'm not sure yet," she was saying. "He's been different. Nicer, I guess. It's throwing me off." She paused. "I know. I thought he might have found out too, but he hasn't said a word. I mean, if he knew, he'd say something, right?" Silence. Then, laughter. Soft, almost shy. "Stop. You're the worst," she said. Not to me, of course. To him. Damon. That night, I couldn't sleep. Not because of what she said. That part didn't even sting anymore. It was how comfortable she sounded. Like betrayal had become her second language. I lay on the edge of the bed while she snored softly beside me. My hand rested inches from hers, but it might as well have been on another planet. The woman I married, Claire from the bookstore, Claire who used to cry at Pixar movies and made me promise never to grow a beard, was gone. This was someone else. And she wasn't coming back. So I did what any logical man would do. I started crafting her exit. Now, here's where things get meticulous. I didn't just want to end it. I wanted to end it elegantly. Because revenge isn't about rage. It's about symmetry. She took something from me without asking: my trust, my peace, the truth of our marriage. So I'd take something from her too. But first, I needed her to give it to me willingly. So I staged a breakdown. Started staying out late. Sometimes I'd come home smelling like nothing, but with a mysterious receipt in my pocket, just in case she got curious. Other nights, I'd take long showers and leave my phone screen on just a little too long before turning it over on the counter. She started asking questions. "Where were you?" "With Logan. He needed to talk." "What about?" "Marriage stuff," I said, voice quiet. "He thinks his wife might be cheating." That one hit her hard. I saw it. The twitch in her eyelid. The sudden grip on her wine glass. "Do you think she is?" "Probably," I said. "But he hasn't told her he knows. He wants to wait. Build the whole story first." Claire nodded slowly. Her throat moved as she swallowed. Then she changed the subject. "The following weekend, I did something bold. I invited Damon to dinner. Not by name. Not even directly. But I knew which gym Claire went to. And I knew they were doing a members and friends welcome event that Saturday. So I asked her, casually, "Want to have a little get-together? Just a few people? Haven't seen some of our friends in a while." She hesitated. I smiled. "You can invite people from the gym. You always say I don't know your world." It was bait. Bait dipped in honey and flattery. She fell for it. Damon walked in wearing a white button-down and too much cologne. I greeted him like a stranger. Because technically, I was one. He extended his hand, confident. I shook it. "Damon, right? Claire's mentioned the gym crew before." He smiled like the golden retriever he clearly thought he was. "Yeah, man. Nice to finally meet you." Claire hovered behind him, eyes scanning my face for cracks. I gave her none. The night was smooth. Easy. I poured wine. Played the gracious host. Let them laugh together just enough to get comfortable. And I filmed everything. Subtle little clips. Her hand on his arm. The shared glances. The way her laughter changed pitch when he said something stupid. It was all I needed. Not for a confrontation, but for the curtain call. She thanked me that night. Said the dinner was fun. And it was. Especially watching her believe for a few final hours that she was still in control. I tucked her in like a gentleman. Kissed her forehead. Said I was proud of her. And I meant it. You have to admire someone that deep in denial, still pretending they're innocent. She didn't know it yet, but the gears were already turning. Her show was almost over. And I was already backstage, holding the wires that held her whole act together. There's something oddly poetic about watching your house become a museum of lies. Each photo on the wall becomes a prop. Each drawer you once filled together now holds ghosts. The coffee machine still beeps at 7:12 a.m. sharp. Like it doesn't know the foundation cracked months ago. Claire kept smiling. That was the part that almost made me laugh. She smiled like everything was getting better. Like my kindness was her redemption arc. Like maybe, just maybe, we were on our way back to love. And I let her believe that. Because belief? That's the last thing to fall before someone breaks. The morning after our dinner party, the one with Damon sitting 2 chairs away from me while Claire giggled into her wine, she was radiant. Floating. Humming in the kitchen like a woman who thought she dodged the blade. "You're in a good mood," I said, buttering toast I didn't plan to eat. It was a good night. She smiled. "Thank you for, being cool." "Cool." I raised an eyebrow. She flushed a little, then gave that soft, practiced laugh. I just mean, you were great. Social. Open. I figured, I said, watching the knife glide across the toast. What's the point in holding on to old grudges? She blinked. Just for a second. Just enough to betray the thought behind her smile. And I tucked that blink away in my pocket. That afternoon, I started phase 2. Now, I'm not proud of this next part. But then again, I didn't set the fire. I just learned to enjoy the warmth. I created a new email account. Sent an anonymous message from a burner address to Claire's office. Nothing dramatic. Just a screenshot of one of her messages to Damon, one that ended with, I wish I could wake up next to you every day. No context. No subject line. Just the truth, printed in pixels. The kind of truth that sinks teeth into office gossip like a hungry dog. Claire got home later than usual that night. Not absurdly late. Just late enough to say, sorry, traffic was hell, and kiss me like she didn't taste like anxiety. She was quiet. Distracted. Her fork tapped rhythmically against her plate during dinner. She picked at her salad like it had betrayed her. Everything all right? I asked, sipping wine. She nodded too quickly. Yeah. Just, long day. I waited. She didn't elaborate. Didn't bring up the email. The message. The tremor in her voice. I think part of her still hoped it was a fluke. A prank. A glitch. She didn't realize that was just the first ripple. The flood was coming. Over the next week, I watched her unravel. Tiny things at first, her phone glued to her hand, texts typed then deleted, cold coffee forgotten on the counter. She wore that old denim jacket she usually saves for comfort, like it could protect her from consequences. One morning, she came into the living room holding her phone. Someone's been sending things to people at work, she said. Her voice was careful, like someone walking across ice. Really? I said, looking up from the newspaper. What kind of things? I don't know. Private messages. Screenshots. It's weird. I nodded, frowning like the good husband. That's awful. She watched me for a moment, her lips parted slightly, like she wanted to ask if I knew anything. But then she closed her mouth. Because she still didn't believe I could do it. That's how deep her delusion ran. A few days later, I made sure she found the envelope. It was on the kitchen counter when she got home, plain white, sealed with a single piece of tape. Inside was a flash drive. She picked it up slowly, like it might bite her. What's this? She asked. I shrugged. No idea. Must have come in the mail. She narrowed her eyes. Seriously. Dead serious. She walked down the hall without another word. I stayed on the couch, let her watch it alone. The footage was grainy but clear, her and Damon, at the riverfront Marriott. Laughing. Kissing. Her slipping a keycard into his hand like she'd done it before. And she had. Twice. I'd checked. I didn't record the videos myself, by the way. I paid the concierge $200 and a six-pack to pull the security feed. Because if you're going to end someone's world, you might as well use their favorite setting. She didn't come out of the bedroom for an hour. When she did, she looked pale. Not teary. Not furious. Just hollow. Did you send it? She asked. I tilted my head. Send what? The messages. The video. I didn't answer. She stared at me for a moment. Why are you doing this? I let out a soft breath and looked her dead in the eye. Because I wanted you to trust me first. Her face contorted. Anger, confusion, pain, all trying to land at once. So this was all fake? The dinners, the kind words, the patience? No, I said. Those were real. That's what makes this worse. She sat down like someone had pulled the bones from her legs. You could have just left me. I nodded. I could have. But then you'd still think you were the victim. That night, I didn't sleep in the bed. I didn't pack a bag. I didn't slam any doors. I just sat in the living room, cross-legged, watching the ceiling fan spin. And somewhere in the house, Claire cried. Not loud. Not messy. Just soft, silent sobs muffled by the same pillow she used to dream into beside me. And for the first time in months, I didn't feel broken. I felt whole. Because the worst part about betrayal isn't the lie itself. It's how long you spend trying to make it feel like truth. And now? Now she knew what it felt like to live in a story that was no longer hers to write. The morning after the envelope, Claire didn't make coffee. That might not sound like much, but in our house, coffee wasn't a drink. It was a ritual. The smell usually hit the hallway by 7:15 a.m., like clockwork. A sign that life, no matter how fractured, kept moving. But that day, nothing. No aroma. No sound. Just the faint creak of the bathroom door opening and her soft footsteps shuffling through a routine that no longer had choreography. I sat at the table, sipping my own cup. I'd made it myself, stronger than usual, darker. Seemed appropriate. Claire entered the kitchen wrapped in her robe, face bare, hair unbrushed. She looked like someone who'd aged 5 years overnight. She opened her mouth like she might say something, then closed it again. Her eyes didn't meet mine. I slid the sugar toward her. She didn't reach for it. I didn't mean for it to happen, she finally said, voice brittle. Sure you did, I replied, calm as a lake. You just didn't mean for me to find out. She flinched at that. Funny how truth stings more than accusations. She leaned on the counter, both hands flat, eyes focused on nothing in particular. It wasn't love, you know. That made me smile into my cup. Then you threw everything away for what? Hobby-level betrayal. She swallowed hard. I was lonely, she whispered. I nodded. So was I. She didn't expect that. She looked at me then, really looked, for the first time in months. Maybe years. I kept waiting for you to change, she said. To become more exciting. I offered. She nodded slightly. Well, I said, setting my mug down. How am I doing so far? By noon, she started damage control. I could see it in the way she moved, scrubbing the stove like she was trying to erase guilt with citrus-scented cleaner, folding laundry with unnecessary precision, texting with tight, fast fingers like she was building a new story before the old one could settle. I didn't ask who she was texting. I already knew. She was preparing her version, the one where she was confused, the one where things were rocky long before Damon showed up, the one where I had pulled away first. And if I hadn't been so prepared, I might have cared. Instead, I walked into our shared office, sat down at the computer, and began typing a different narrative. Mine. I started with a letter. Not to her, but to her parents. They always liked me, respected me. Her dad once told me, on the back porch over bourbon, that I was the kind of man you build a legacy with. That man deserved to know how his daughter had redefined the term. It wasn't a hit piece. No venom. Just details. A timeline. Neutral tone, factual phrasing. It read like a report. Because that's what betrayal really is, a series of receipts. I printed it, folded it into an envelope, wrote their names on the front in ink she used to use for birthday cards. That was envelope 1. Envelope 2 went to human resources at her company. See, what Claire never considered was that Damon wasn't just her gym crush. He was a client. A small account, sure, but technically within the bounds of workplace ethics. Their affair? Violation of conduct. I didn't want her fired. Not yet. But I wanted them to look. To squint. To question. I sent that envelope anonymously. With screenshots. Dates. Names. Not to destroy her. Just to loosen the screws. By 5 p.m., Claire was cooking. Like nothing had changed. Chicken piccata, she said, stirring the sauce. Haven't made it in a while. She was right. She hadn't. That dish was our first meal together in our first apartment. It was nostalgia bait, weaponized as comfort food. I sat at the table and watched her plate the dinner with practiced grace. I took a bite. Chewed. Swallowed. It's good, I said. She smiled, a flicker of hope in her eyes. And then I added, it'll be a great meal to remember this house by. Her hand froze halfway to her wine glass. What do you mean? I dabbed the corner of my mouth with a napkin. I called a realtor today. House goes on the market next month. You're selling the house? Her voice was barely above a whisper. I'm selling my half, I said. What you do with yours is your call. She blinked, jaw slack, like someone realizing the slow bleed had just hit a major artery. I thought you might want to talk about. Oh, we're talking, I said. I'm just not negotiating. That night, she stood in the doorway of our bedroom while I packed a suitcase. Where will you go? She asked. Not far. Just far enough. She took a shaky breath. I didn't think you'd actually leave. I zipped the bag and turned toward her. That's the difference between us, Claire. I think before I act. You act before you think. Her lip trembled. I know I messed up. No, I said. Messing up is forgetting an anniversary. Leaving the laundry in the washer. You built an alternate life behind my back and handed someone else the keys to it. I slung the bag over my shoulder and walked past her. She didn't follow. That was growth. For both of us. I slept at a friend's place that night. Logan, divorced, cynical, good couch. He didn't ask questions. Just handed me a beer and turned on a rerun of Top Gear like we were teenagers avoiding math homework. I think he knew this wasn't a breakdown. It was a blueprint. Back at the house, Claire would wake up the next morning to an empty side of the bed. And on my pillow, I left her a note. 3 lines. No rage. No poetry. I saw everything. I forgave nothing. I left quietly, so you'd finally hear it. She'd understand it eventually. But by then, the silence would be louder than the storm she never expected. Claire didn't try to call for 2 days. I thought she might break by noon on the 1st, but no. She held. Or maybe she was scrambling, cleaning the digital footprints, deleting the messages, rewriting history before anyone could hold her to the first draft. By day 3, the first text came in. Can we talk? Please. I didn't respond. That night, her voice filled my voicemail box. Quieter. Cracked around the edges. I don't know what to say. I don't know how we got here. Interesting phrasing, considering I hadn't gotten here so much as she dragged me behind her lies and dropped me off. She followed up with one more message. You made your point. Now what? That was when I realized she still didn't get it. She thought this was a tantrum. It wasn't. This was demolition. Claire began working on her image immediately, online, at least. A sudden flurry of posts, sunrise photos with captions about growth, pictures of wine glasses beside books she never read. The classics. One featured a selfie with a quote. Sometimes storms make space for sunlight. I laughed out loud when I saw that one. Storm? She was the lightning, thunder, and the fool who danced in the middle of the road. But I didn't comment. I didn't correct her. The worst punishment for someone like Claire? Letting her believe she's controlling the story, right up until the final page. 2 weeks later, I agreed to meet. At her request. Neutral ground, a quiet cafe on the east side. Middle table. No distractions. She wore the sweater I bought her on our 3rd anniversary. Soft gray, sleeves a little too long. She always said it made her feel safe. Now it just looked like armor. Hi, she said. I nodded. She fiddled with her cup. Didn't drink it. I keep trying to come up with a way to explain. But everything I think of sounds selfish. I raised an eyebrow. Because it is. She bit her lip. You were always so steady. I thought, maybe you'd understand. Eventually. I exhaled slowly. Steady isn't the same as stupid, Claire. I know. She looked away. I just didn't think you'd leave. And that, I said, is the problem. She tried tears next. Not a full breakdown. Just the shimmer. The wet edge of vulnerability. The performance. You were kind, she whispered. You were. You were good to me. I leaned forward, hands folded. That's what makes it worse. She blinked. You don't want to try again? I smiled. Not cruel. Not kind. Just done. You don't fix a vase by gluing it back together with the same hand that dropped it. I moved into a small apartment downtown. Exposed brick, too much light, cheap rent. It didn't feel like home, but it didn't smell like betrayal either. That was enough. Claire texted a few times after our meeting. She asked if I needed anything from the house. Said the dog missed me. We never had a dog. I didn't reply. It wasn't out of spite. I just didn't owe her anything anymore. And silence? Silence is the one truth you can't rewrite. A month passed. Then another. I learned to cook for one. Learned to sleep diagonally on a mattress that didn't carry the weight of someone else's deception. Claire, meanwhile, was unraveling in public. Friends told me she had been let go from work. Restructuring, they said. But I knew. Office gossip had a way of spreading like smoke. I hadn't outed her. Not directly. But I had tipped the first domino. And her own actions had done the rest. Actions always speak louder than apologies. One final message came through, late one night. No words. Just a photo. Our wedding picture. Torn in half. I stared at it for a full minute before deleting it. She wanted a reaction. Instead, she got a conclusion. 6 months after I left, I sent Claire one final package. A small box. Wrapped in brown paper. Inside? One thing. The notebook. The one with every date, every hotel, every message. Annotated. Highlighted. Labeled like a research project. And on the last page, a note. This was never revenge. This was a record. So if you ever wonder why I stopped loving you, you won't have to guess. I didn't sign it. She would know. I heard she moved out of the house 2 weeks later. Sold it to a couple with a golden retriever and plans to turn the guest room into a nursery. The irony wasn't lost on me. I visited the street once. Just once. Drove past slowly. Didn't stop. The house looked the same. But it wasn't mine anymore. Truth is, it never was. It belonged to a version of us that existed before her secrets outgrew our vows. People ask me now, have you forgiven her? And here's the honest answer. No, but I'm no longer angry. Because anger keeps you tied to the person who hurt you. And I don't want to be tied to Claire anymore. Not even by hate. Revenge wasn't about making her suffer. It was about making sure I never forgot who she chose to be. And ensuring she'd never again forget who I became when I finally stopped trying to be enough for someone who never was. That's not cruelty. That's closure.